You've probably heard people talk about it, maybe with a little bit of fear, your egg count. It's so often treated like this final, definitive score for your fertility. But what if I told you that that single number isn't even close to telling the whole story? We're about to dive into the science that could totally change how you think about it. So, this is the big question, right? The one that causes so much anxiety. We're kind of conditioned to think that more is always better. But is that really the case when we're talking about fertility? Let's dig into the science that separates the sheer number of eggs you have from their actual potential to make a baby. This intense focus on a single number has created what I like to call fertility score anxiety. There's a whole industry out there built on tests that promise to boil down your entire reproductive potential into one little score. One of the most common tests you'll hear about is the Antral Follicle Count, or AFC. It's a pretty straightforward ultrasound that just counts the tiny follicles in your ovaries to guess at your ovarian reserve. And that number, it feels so concrete, so scientific. But the anxiety often comes from a massive misunderstanding of what that score is actually measuring. Okay, to really get this, we need to break fertility down into two completely different concepts. This is so important. It's all about quantity versus quality. So on one side, we've got ovarian reserve. That's the number the AFC test gives you. But on the other side, we have something called oocyte competence. And honestly, this is arguably the most important piece of the entire fertility puzzle. So let's be super clear. Ovarian reserve is just your inventory. It's the total stock of potential eggs you have at that moment. A really great way to picture it is like the number of books on a library shelf. The AFC is just someone walking by and counting the spines. That's it. Now, oocyte competence, that is all about the quality of each individual egg. It's about its potential to actually become a healthy baby. So going back to our library, this isn't about how many books are on the shelf. It's about the quality of the story inside each one. Are they masterpieces or are they, duds? And this right here brings us to the absolute crucial question. Does the size of your library tell you anything about how good the books are? For years, this was a surprisingly tricky question for scientists to get a straight answer on. But then, a group of researchers came up with a really, really clever way to figure this out. They designed a study that could finally separate the fact of egg quantity from the fiction of assumed quality. It all comes from this 2018 study in the journal Reproductive BioMedicine Online. And what these researchers did was find a brilliant way to isolate egg quality from egg quantity once and for all. See, here was the big problem they had to solve. In a typical IVF cycle, if you have a high egg count, you usually get more embryos. That just gives you more chances to find a healthy one. It's like having more lottery tickets. It completely hides whether your individual eggs, your tickets, were actually any better, or if you just had more of them to play with. Their solution was just genius. They used an egg donation model. They looked at nearly 2,000 young, healthy egg donors and sorted them into groups based on their AFC, from low to high. But here's the absolute key. They gave every single recipient a similar number of eggs. This leveled the playing field completely. It didn't matter if the donor had a ton of eggs or just a few. Everyone got the same number of lottery tickets. Then all they had to do was watch and see who won. So what did they find? Well, the data from this incredibly clever study revealed something that just shattered a long-held myth about fertility. Okay. First, something totally expected. The study confirmed that, yes, women with a higher antral follicle count did produce more eggs. So check. AFC is a fantastic predictor of egg quantity. No surprises there. But here it is, the million-dollar question. Once you give everyone the same number of shots on goal, does having a higher egg count actually mean you have better quality eggs? And the answer, as you can see right here in the data from the study, was a massive, resounding no. Absolutely no significant link between the donor's egg count and the recipient's chance of pregnancy, all the way down to the most important one, live birth. The numbers were statistically the same across every single group. This study's authors really couldn't have said it any clearer. For young women, the number of eggs you have simply does not predict how good those eggs are. Your egg count does not define your egg quality. Period. So, what on earth does this all mean for you? How should we all be rethinking these numbers and tests that cause so much stress? Well, the first and most critical piece of context here is age. Remember, this study looked exclusively at healthy egg donors who are all younger than 35. So these conclusions apply specifically to that group. All right, let's just nail down the key takeaways. For women under 35, your antral follicle count is an amazing measure of egg quantity, which is super useful for doctors planning an IVF cycle. But it is not a measure of egg quality. A lower egg count does not mean you have bad eggs. It might just mean you have fewer. Because as this study showed, the potential inside each one of those eggs was exactly the same, whether it came from someone with a low egg count or a super high one. And this leaves us with a really powerful final thought. If your egg count isn't the key predictor of egg quality in younger women, what is? Well, this study kind of points right to the answer, doesn't it? The one factor they controlled for, the single most powerful predictor of an egg's potential, isn't the number in the reserve, it's age.